Welcome to the last and probably not most necessary but pretty necessary video of this series. And today we just gonna go through some things that might happen, some errors that would be called in different cases, and I'm gonna show you how you fix those errors. Okay. My laptop just went crazy, and I'm gonna show you today how. So first error that could happen is we don't have any endpoints. If that's the case, we obviously should just catch this, and let's do this right here. So we're gonna call endpoints.endpoints.length. If this is 0 or below 0, which should never be the case, but you never know, then we if that's the case, then we should create an answer that we want to say that like we don't have any connected devices or something like that. If that's not the case, we're gonna obviously want the endpoint to be returns. For that we have to get a new endpoint and oops, no, I'm going crazy here. So we're gonna create a new endpoint. Gonna make this an endpoint instantly, and can delete this. And with those changes, we should not get an error now when there are no endpoints connected. So that's first of all. Second of all, we want to get the directives, or let's say the type of the requests, because we obviously don't want to always say hello world, whatever we say. We want to react to the intents that we are calling. So when we have an hello world intent, we obviously want to say hello world, but when we say bye world, we don't want to say hello world again. We want to say bye world. And that's a pretty good point right there, because we obviously have 5 intents that are basically added to our projects, and then we have one more intent, at least in our case, that we added. That's the hello world intent. We do have the hello world intent right here, and then we have the Amazon fallback intent, we have the cancel intent, the help intent, stop intent, and navigate home intent. And usually when you develop a skill, you would not be happy when it looks something like this, because when I say stop or when I say help, it always will return hello world and not adjust to the case that we currently want. So if we say stop, we want the skill to stop, and if we say help, we want the skill to help us. So how do we do this? What we want to do now is just to get the type of intent that was sent. So for that, we're gonna have to get intent request. We're gonna create this new variable, which is not imported yet, and call this intent, and put it to the input dot request, and convert it as an intent request. So we have to import this by clicking Control and dot. Oh wait, this is not important. Oh right, intent request. And now we can just add the import right there, and this should be fine. So the import we are using is obviously using alexa.net request.type. Right, so when we've done this, now we can start to work as we obviously should work. We're gonna call an if statement right there, and we're gonna catch now the input request type. We're gonna do this and say following: if the input dot request is equal to launch request, which is a type, and launch request is always the request that starts the skill. So if we say Alexa start tutorial, this is the launch request. So if that's the case, we want to return an answer right here. We're gonna do this later. And if that's not the case, we obviously want to know, well, what is it then? So we're not gonna do an else, we're gonna do an else if, and we're gonna ask if the input.request is an intent request, because that's something different. An intent request is not like the launch request. The intent request is actually this what we defined here. So everything that like hello world or Amazon fallback or cancel or help or stop or something like that, is an intent request and nothing else. So let's concentrate on that. We want now to know if we called our intent request, or if we called our hello world request or intent, or if we called stop. So let's try to differ those. Those. First of all, we obviously want now to get the request name that is requesting. So we're gonna say intent, which is this attribute right here, dot intent, which is an attribute in an intent request. Then we're gonna want the name that is requesting, and we're gonna ask if it's equal to the name of the intent that we are calling. So we're gonna get this hello world intent, because this is the name that is going to be passed, and we're gonna ask, is the intent that was sent to us our hello world intent, or is the intent that was passed to us dot, so same thing as above, equals Amazon, and this is important, big letters, so the same way as this, and we just can copy this right here. We're gonna copy this and say, if that's this intent, then you should always behave somehow else. So in case it's the hello world intent, we obviously want to return the answer of hello world. We're gonna return a hello world right here. And if that's not the case, we want to return stop. So we want to not return stop, we want to stop the app or the skill that we developed. And now a good programmer would obviously catch every one of those intents, and you should do this in your case. But to keep this video as short as possible, I'm just gonna do this for 2 intents. So you go ahead and add all those other intents, and when you've done this, we're gonna now create a function that creates an answer that is, let's say, universal. So we're gonna create an answer that is creating our response. Yeah. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a new, we can even call it private skill response function. We're gonna call this create answer. Okay, let's make this small and just paste in the code that we just copied out. So from SSML to the return skill response. Obviously what's missing here is the directive. So we can just pass that right in. This is the type of send directive, and this should be no issue no more. What we also want to do is we want a custom answer, so we don't want the same answer for every case. So we can pass the answer right here, answer, and now we can just use this and make a dollar in front of the string, so we can use attributes inside of it dynamically. Just type in answer. So this looks something like this. And now when you pass in an answer, let's say hello world, this will be set. If you pass in by world, this will be set. You also now can adjust everything else you need. So if you want a new reprompt message, you also can do this by just saying a new string. Obviously we want to use string reprompt message. You can set this to something specific, or you just can, oh, obviously you cannot use this name. We can just use MSG, a shorter form, and just use the string that we pass in right here. So what's the problem? Right, string convertive and string reprompt message. Oh, right, so that's the wrong name, obviously. So now this works. Now we have a universal function that always returns the correct return type, and now we can just adjust this right. Oh, right, we can just add one more thing is, and that's, oh no, I deleted something. We're gonna add an attribute that says if the session should be kept alive or if we can just end the session. So let's add a bool and call this bool keep alive. And yeah, just go back down here and say keep alive. So whatever we pass in as a bool, so if you want to keep the session alive, we're gonna pass in a false, because, oh, let's call this somewhere else, should end session, so we don't get weirded out. So if we want the session to end, we're gonna pass in a true, and if we want the session to be alive and keep going, and also yeah, if you want the session to be then we obviously have to pass in a false. I'm just thinking about one thing that I seem to response body dot reprompt equals to true. So no, I think there's a line of code missing. Just give me a second, I'll be right back. Actually, nothing was missing. It just yeah, I just thought there was something missing. So just delete this, what I wrote here, and yeah, so we are good to go. We can now just create dynamic answers. We're gonna say here return create answer, and first of all, we obviously gonna pass in a string with our answer. We're gonna say no devices found, or no connected devices found. So next we're gonna add the directive. We can add the directive. If you don't want to add the directive, you obviously can create a second function that does not include the directive, so we don't get any errors. I'm just copying this right up here. All right. So yeah, obviously this was kind of dumb. We're gonna just pass in a null, which should not work. So don't do this, just so we don't get an error right here. And now we can pass in a reprompt message. Is everything okay? But usually when we say it should end the session, like we can say now, the reprompt is not triggered. So this might be unnecessary. You just could put something like this, because the session will end and the skill will end as well. As next, we can here return an answer. I'm gonna say return create answer, and this is our hello world, or our start point. So we're gonna say the skill was started. What do you want to do? Okay. Now we obviously have to pass in everything again. I know this is not perfect. Everybody could do this better, I guess. Oh, and now I completely deleted the directive. Yeah, that's not very handy. I'm just gonna create a dummy. So just so we don't get an error right there. Yeah, so the skill was started because it's our launch request. What do you want to do? We can add a reprompt. Is there a problem? And then we obviously want to keep the session alive, so we don't want this session to end in this case, and we're gonna type in false. If we type in false, the session will keep going and the reprompt will be triggered if it can, or if we don't answer. Next, we obviously want to also return an answer right here when we say hello world. So we're gonna do this by just saying hello, everything is okay. Can even set a dot right here, doesn't matter. We will pass the directive. We can say the reprompt message. This is a reprompt. My god, I don't know how to write. And we also can set the should end session. We will set this always to false, because we are in the middle of our conversation and we might want to do something else. If we now trigger the Amazon stop intent, which will be triggered when we say stop, or when we say something that we obviously write in here. So if we say here stop, and we save and build a model, yeah, then we can say stop and this intent will be triggered. So if that's the case now, we obviously want to return an answer, because this is how things work, and say, okay, bye. We can set the directive if we want to, but this wouldn't be, yeah, this is not necessary since we are not communicating with any gadget right here, so we shouldn't add a directive anyway. So this line of code should not be there. But yeah, you know what I mean. As next, we're gonna say the reprompt message again. So this can be empty because we're not gonna reprompt anyway, and we're gonna end the session. So yeah, that's it for this tutorial. If you want to see example of how a real app works, I will link you my GitHub account down in the description, and there you can download a completely working just skill, yeah, go ahead, learn something out of the skill, keep trying, do some stuff, and if you need help, obviously I'm there for you, at least in most cases. If I can't answer you, I'll just try to figure out with you what the problem is. And just if you're wondering why I had an error up here, it's because I was missing a return at last. So if nothing of this happens, obviously we have to return something again, and we can just define this now. But yeah, that's nothing special anymore. So I hope this tutorial helped somebody out there. I hope I could explain it at least a little bit accurate. And yeah, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask. I hope I can help. If not, obviously, like I said, we're gonna try to get to the mistake. Yeah, well, thanks for watching, and maybe we see you next time in another tutorial. Bye.